Hello and welcome back to the Data Privacy Lawyer. Today's review, we're going to be looking at a car organization and some of the public-facing privacy documentation they have on their site. So we've been presented with the cookie ban. I've talked about this at length. Now, the preference button is white with black writing. Decline, black with white writing, and then the accept button is black with white writing again. So the first thing we're going to do is read the banner. We use essential cookies to make our website work. With your consent, we may also use non-essential cookies to improve user experience, personalize content, customize advertising, and analyze website traffic. For these reasons, we may share your site usage data with our social media advertising and analytics partners. By clicking accept, you agree to our website's cookie use as described in the cookie policy, which we're going to review today. You can change your cookie settings at any time by clicking preference, which we will do. So I like doing these reviews because before I draft any cookie policy, I always look at a client's website first so that I can understand. Generally, the client will be like, can you help us with the cookie policy? I always look at this process flow from banner to preference to policy. All three documents must align. So you can see here that I've been opted in to performance and functionality cookies, analytics, advertising, social network. This is not a mistake. The reason I've been opted in is because the obligations that GMC has in the United States is to present me with the opportunity to opt out. They can opt me in because I am a US resident and the US data protection laws allow them to do so. If I was accessing this site in the European Union, these should not be checked because the European Union data protection laws state that individuals have the opportunity to opt in. They should never be pre-checked. And I think that what I'm going to do in 2026 is I'm going to make a comparison between users who are able to access these sites in the United States versus the European Union, because the rollout of cookie compliance sometimes is not coherent or applicable in the geography where the cookie compliance is being done. And companies need to be aware of their obligations in different geographies. So I've just opted out of all of these. I want to make note of something. I love this. I mentioned this in other cookie reviews I've done. The information that's provided here on unclassified cookies, it's really useful for companies to take advantage of consent management platforms like this, to be able to do a scan of the website so that you're updated on what type of cookies are utilized on the site. It's more useful to have a preference center that will track the cookies on the site for you, as opposed to actually placing the cookies on your web URL, because keeping up to date with the changes in the cookies on this web page is going to be far more difficult than having your consent management platform tracking this for you. So this is a lot more useful. Okay, I'm just going to opt out again and save the changes. So this was last updated October 2nd, 2025. It provides a definition of cookies. How can I control cookies? We've got the essential website cookies. Wow, they put it on the site as well. That is really very good. Performance and functionality. When your company is drafting these policies, make sure that your definition that you provide for what constitutes performance and functionality is actually functionality. I can't tell you the amount of times where companies have put that they have performance and functionality cookies, but their definition of what those cookies are marketing and targeting cookies. That's really important, understanding what constitutes performance and functionality. Companies should have internal documentations for what constitutes performance and make sure that they're accurately classifying the cookies based on how they collect them, because it influences the preference center that's presented to consumers. And it's really good that we have the consent preference button that appears on the site. I would say that this is a really good process flow for GMC, which is why we decided to review it today, because we were presented with that banner, we were presented with a preference center, and they've obviously done a really good job of keeping track of the cookies that are presented on the site. I want to see what else they have outside of the actual cookies. Let's talk a bit about this expires. I generally don't go into detail on this for the cookie policy because I like to look at the actual compliance side of it. But one of the reasons why you will generally see companies put expires in 29 days. There is a foundational principle of data protection that talks about retention of data. And essentially what retention of data states is you should only retain the data for as long as necessary for the purposes. There should be no personal data that any organization has that is retained indefinitely. You should never have any personal data that your organization keeps forever. There should always be a purpose. Once that purpose is over, you should be deleting it. So we can see here the purpose here. Adobe Audience Manager data management platform uses these cookies to assign a unique ID when users visit the website. It expires in 29 days, meaning there is an expiration for when a unique ID needs to be created on a user. After this period, it's being deleted. Now, one thing that a data protection counsel is going to verify, if you're making a representation on your website saying that it expires in 29 days, you need to be able to back this up with evidence, because a regulator is going to ask you for it. Don't make a representation that's not accurately reflected in your privacy practices. This notice simply tells consumers what you're doing. What you're actually doing in practice must be reflected on this website, which is again why it's so important to make sure you're reviewing this regularly, because how you process personal data changes based on your products, services, and offerings within your organization. So I hope you enjoyed this review. I think this is a really good policy. I'm just going to scroll down and see if we have any other insights. But outside of that, the flow for this particular page is really very good. It addresses the geography. I don't know. I know that I'm pretty sure that Buick and GMC sell their products globally, but I'm not intimately familiar with this particular organization. Looks like they have a unique name, Classic Buick. I'm not entirely sure if this is the GMC brand global or if this is an offshoot or an affiliate. And the last thing I want to mention is that if it is in fact that there are offshoots or the way in which the entities are structured, really important to make sure that you outline who the controller is, because if it is not GMC Global, then we can see here this is called Classic Elite Buick GMC. I presume that this is different to GMC Global, which is a global organization that sells cars. This seems to be some type of offshoot. So in the event that a consumer wants to contact this organization to exercise their data subject rights, then this would be the entity that they would connect with, and it would not be GMC in and of itself. So making that clear is also very important. But all in all, I think this is a great cookie policy. I also think that it addresses its obligations under the data protection laws. There's been great thought that has gone into, the preference center. And I really hope you enjoyed this review. If your company is looking for assistance in creating a compliant cookie policy or a compliant process flow for your cookies, take a look at my description below, and I will see you in another review.